spoiled daughter called me a pauper in her post because I refused to fully pay for her $150,000 wedding. Hello, everyone. So I'm 44 years old and I have a daughter, Trisha. She's 23. In a couple of months, she's getting married to her boyfriend, Jerry, who's 26. I became a father when I was just over 20. Only 6 months after the wedding, my wife unfortunately died from an epileptic seizure. As a single father, I set myself the only goal: to provide Trisha with the best life I possibly could. After my wife's death, I threw myself into work, as often happens. My sister took care of my daughter at home, and after work I would take over. I worked hard, got promoted, and invested all my money into raising my daughter and making sure she had everything she wanted, so it's no surprise that Trisha grew up spoiled. And that's entirely my fault. I always thought I was acting in her best interests and just gave her everything she asked for because I could afford it. My sister told me more than once that I was doing the wrong thing, but I didn't listen because Trisha was my weakness. I couldn't refuse her anything. I was warned that it would end badly. And eventually, it really did turn against me about a week ago when Trisha said I should pay for her wedding. She wanted a very luxurious ceremony, and her wedding budget was about $150,000. She wanted to invite many guests, including people she barely knew but still wanted to invite, a lavish banquet table, and an exorbitantly expensive venue. On top of that, she wanted me to pay for a custom-made designer wedding dress, all the jewelry, and the bridesmaids' outfits. I'm not stingy, and I'm fine financially, but $150,000 is too much even for me. I have my own business now, but such an amount for a wedding would simply ruin me. So, with a heavy heart, I told Trisha I couldn't afford to pay for such a wedding and she would either have to cut costs or at least contribute herself. She looked disappointed and asked if I had set aside a wedding fund for her. And yes, I had, but only $75,000. First of all, I didn't expect her to think I would pay for the whole wedding. At best, I thought she would ask me to cover the venue rental or the catering. Well, maybe both, but definitely not everything entirely. And secondly, I didn't think she would get married so early, so I simply didn't have enough time to save more. Besides, she and Jerry had only been together for a year and could have waited a bit before getting married. During that time, I could have saved more money, or perhaps they would have found better jobs themselves and contributed to the wedding. I explained all this to Trisha, but she didn't seem to understand me and just threw a tantrum and then left the house. She was angry at me for saying I couldn't afford to pay for her wedding because she knew I could. I just didn't want to spend that much money on a wedding. She accused me of being selfish and said that if it were a business deal, I wouldn't even think twice. I didn't know how to explain to her that it was completely different, so I just left it at that. I felt terrible about it. And after some time, I decided to take out a personal loan to pay for her wedding. I immediately discussed this with a banker friend of mine. I could repay the loan gradually, so it didn't seem like a big deal to me. She didn't speak to me for 2 days, and I decided I would contact her only after finalizing the loan. However, on the 3rd day, she posted a snide comment on Facebook calling me a pauper. She accused me of selfishness, said I only ever worked and was never around when she was a child. She even hinted that her mother might have died because of me, which was especially cruel. Then she wrote that I was a selfish workaholic who thought only about myself and my business, but still somehow remained a pauper. That was a low blow, and I blocked her right after that post. I didn't even touch my phone or go on social media for several hours after that. My sister, worried about me, decided to visit. When she came, I couldn't hold it in and burst into tears in front of her. Trisha's words cut very deep. I was depressed that whole day and for a couple of days after. I didn't talk to anyone except for work, and I could barely force myself to get out of bed. My sister stayed with me and took care of me. She also spoke to Trisha and made her delete that post, but it didn't change anything because now I knew exactly what my daughter thought of me, and it broke my heart. I couldn't think of a single word I wanted to say to her, so I just stayed silent. I only unblocked her yesterday when I felt a bit better. My sister had already told her exactly what she thought, but I couldn't just let it go without talking to Trisha in person. I had already canceled the loan, and that's probably terrible. But I really wanted to hurt my daughter emotionally because she did the same to me. I understand she's my daughter, and I shouldn't think or feel that way, but I just really wanted her to understand how I felt, more precisely for her to feel the same. So I unblocked her and decided to wait until she called me herself. Finally, she called me last night. She started with an apology and said she had just been very angry and said a lot of things she didn't really mean. She was just disappointed. She couldn't have the wedding of her dreams. But even when she apologized, she didn't sound sincere, more irritated. And when I heard that tone, I felt even worse. So I immediately cut her apology short and told her that I had been planning to take out a loan and surprise her. For a moment, she was clearly happy until I said I had canceled the loan after her post, and that now I wasn't going to give her any money at all. Let her find a way to pay for the wedding herself, since she's so independent and I'm so selfish. She wanted to say something, but I continued and said that since I'm such a selfish person, she should give me back everything I spent on her after she turned 18. That was unfair on my part, and I wasn't actually going to take the money back. I just wanted her to feel ashamed, so I told her I wanted her to return every damn cent, which I must say was not a small amount. I paid for her college education and housing. She didn't want to live in a dorm. Apparently, she needed her own apartment. She often went shopping with friends, took expensive trips because she knew I would pay for everything. She was spoiled to the core and took advantage of it. So I told her, pay it all back to the penny, and then we'll never have to speak again. She won't have to keep in touch with her pauper father, and I won't have to with a spoiled, nasty, and ill-mannered girl, and that will be the perfect arrangement for both of us. By the time I said the last words, I was literally shouting into the phone. I was shaking with rage, and everything I had been holding in over the last few days just burst out. I couldn't hold it in anymore. When I finished yelling at her, I hung up and collapsed onto the couch, trying to calm down. My sister came out of the kitchen. She had heard me shouting and had overheard me demanding that Trisha return my money. At first, she didn't say anything, but I knew she had a lot of thoughts about it. She waited until the evening and brought it up at dinner. She said that I was equally to blame for what Trisha had become because I had spoiled her. Now I couldn't just shift all the blame onto her because she didn't raise herself that way. I did. She thinks I was too harsh with Trisha despite everything she said. In her opinion, it would have been better to simply stop talking to her until she sincerely apologized, not just formally for show. My sister is sure my daughter only apologized because relatives and perhaps her more reasonable friends ganged up on her. After all, what she wrote in that post was extremely unfair to me, but in my sister's opinion, my reaction was no less absurd. I shouldn't have given in to anger because, after all, I raised her to be like that. I created this person. Then she reminded me of all the times Trisha behaved horribly towards others, whether it was our relatives or her friends, and said that I never really intervened because it didn't concern me personally. At best, I might lightly scold her. But there were never any real consequences simply because I believed she would grow out of it. But now that Trisha targeted me, and I found myself in the place of her victims, I finally saw her true nature. And now, I have no one to blame but myself. My sister thinks I still had a chance to fix the situation by simply letting Trisha realize her terrible behavior on her own. But instead, I acted like a child and did exactly what she would have done in my place. I was vindictive and unnecessarily cruel, putting myself on the same level as her, and now she will be even angrier and will never realize she was wrong. It would have been much wiser to simply ignore her. At that moment, I disagreed with her and left the dinner table without finishing my meal. We haven't spoken since last night, but now, thinking clearly, I think I understand what my sister was talking about. I also realized that I behaved exactly like Trisha, which is clearly not the best example for my daughter. But at the same time, I don't think this whole situation is entirely my fault. Trisha is already an adult, and has the right to make her own decisions. I didn't teach her to behave this way. I just don't understand whether I'm to blame in this situation or not. Update 1. Hi, everyone. I realized my mistake and apologized to my sister. Besides, she is the only person right now who takes care of me, and I can't afford to lose her support. She was also right, and I just didn't want to admit it, because then I would have had to admit my own failure as a father. It seems I never really took Trisha's behavior seriously when she lost her temper and was awful to other people. I just didn't want to call her out. I was too soft with her, and now it's had the opposite effect because she's just become a truly nasty person. Since we talked on the phone, I haven't contacted my daughter. She's been silent too. Trisha still hasn't understood that I don't want her money. She completely missed the point. I was hurt by what she wrote in that post, and all I wanted was a sincere apology. Update 2. From the very beginning, I should have done what my sister told me. Now I completely agree with her because that phone conversation didn't help me at all. On the contrary, it made me realize that I failed as a father. I wanted to raise a daughter who would never feel deprived because she didn't have a mother. And maybe that's why I tried too hard to spoil her and give her everything she wanted. I went too far trying to make up for the loss, and in the end, I simply neglected my role as a father and didn't discipline her when I should have. I could never bring myself to raise my voice at her or punish her, even though that's also an important part of parenting. So maybe I'm not entirely wrong, but I was selfish. Because of that selfishness, both Trisha and I are now suffering. I regret what happened, but it can't be undone. Of course, I don't want any money from Trisha, and I don't think she's going to return it anyway. I don't regret telling her everything I felt. I think I just needed to say it out loud. But maybe I should have been softer. I don't owe her an apology, so I'm not going to reach out first. If she apologizes herself, that's another matter, but that hasn't happened yet, so I don't know. Update 3. I just received a transfer from Trisha for $22,000. It's been about 4 days since the last update, and we haven't spoken at all during that time, so I don't even know what this is about. I told my sister about it, and she thinks it's the money I told Trisha to return to me, my expenses on her since she became an adult. I guess that's probably it. But I was really bothered that she just went and sent the money without saying anything, so I immediately sent it back. I don't need it. I didn't want this. I wanted an apology. And since I'm not going to get 1, I don't need her money. She hasn't sent it back again yet. I don't know how this will end. A few hours after I posted this update, literally a couple of minutes after publication, Trisha called me, speaking in a very cold tone, saying she was just doing what I asked and that I shouldn't make things more complicated, but just take the money and not make a circus out of it. I told her I didn't want her money and just wanted her to feel as bad as she made me feel during our phone conversation. She can keep her money. I really don't need it. She started arguing and said that after I yelled at her on the phone, she felt uncomfortable being in my debt. I used the same logic and replied that after her Facebook post calling me selfish and broke, I also felt uncomfortable accepting money from her because it would only confirm her opinion of me. We reached a dead end. After a few seconds of silence, she just sighed heavily and said she no longer understood what I wanted from her and that she was tired of dealing with my strange behavior. I simply repeated the same words because I feel the same way about her. Again, there was a pause, and then Trisha said she was willing to talk if I wanted to truly discuss our problems. But if I kept behaving this way, she didn't see any chance of fixing our relationship. I replied that I didn't want any discussions. All I wanted was an apology. If she was ready to apologize, then we could talk. If not, I had nothing more to say to her. After that, I hung up. She didn't say or write anything else. I've said everything I wanted. Now the ball is in her court. Update 4. Hi everyone. A couple of days have passed since I last wrote here. Still no word from Trisha, but Jerry posted on social media that they broke up. I actually found out from my sister because she keeps in touch with our relatives, and they saw Jerry's post, since Trisha was tagged in it. He wrote that they broke up by mutual agreement, but I don't believe it. If that were really the case, Trisha wouldn't have deleted all her accounts within an hour after that post was published. I feel like there's more to it, but I can't directly ask my daughter, so I have to guess. My sister has a couple of theories, and they all somehow connect to my conflict with Trisha. She thinks they probably fought over this situation, and that's why they broke up. Maybe she's right, but I personally don't think so. Although, on the other hand, I've been wrong about a lot lately. So maybe I'm wrong this time, too. I wouldn't even be surprised. I really want to know what happened between Trisha and Jerry, and I really want to support her because I'm sure she feels terrible right now, but there's nothing I can do, so I'll just try to ignore it. Update 5. Well, today I finally found out what exactly happened between Trisha and Jerry, and it turned out to be really bad. Fortunately, it had nothing to do with me, so my sister was wrong. And I'm glad about that because I wouldn't want to be involved in that mess. I didn't even have to ask anything. Trisha herself decided a couple of days ago to send me a message explaining everything. By the way, we still haven't reconciled. I don't even know what our relationship is right now, so I won't talk about that yet. Anyway, as I mentioned before, Trisha and Jerry had only known each other for a year. They met through mutual friends, and at that time, Jerry was already dating someone else. But shortly after meeting Trisha, he broke up with his girlfriend. They started dating about a month after his breakup. But a couple of months into the relationship, Trisha found out that Jerry had been seeing that ex at the same time. They fought, but she didn't leave him. She made him promise he wouldn't talk to her anymore. Then he proposed to prove how serious he was about her, and she started rushing to get married to get his ex out of her mind. But recently, Trisha found out that all this time he had been secretly using a second phone to keep in touch with her. That's when she decided to break up with Jerry. This happened just a few days ago, but Jerry begged her not to tell anyone about his cheating, because if his family found out, they would definitely stop talking to him. He was desperate, and she promised not to make it public. That's why the post said they broke up by mutual agreement without explaining the reason. Trisha admitted she had suspected for a long time that he was cheating, and that's why she had been so on edge since the engagement. And when I said I couldn't pay for the wedding, she had a breakdown and said a lot of awful things to me. But she swore she didn't mean any of it. It was just that under the stress and disappointment, her dark side came out. She also apologized and said she truly regretted writing that post about me. She added that she doesn't expect me to forgive her right away, but hopes we can work things out in the future, and she'll try to be a better daughter and a better person. I haven't replied to this message yet. I don't know what to say. Of course, I feel sorry for her, and for myself, too. My daughter was the most important person in my life, and I feel like I ruined everything terribly. I'll definitely reach out to her once I know exactly what I want to say. I want to clear everything up with her. I want her to know that no matter what happens, I'll always be there for her, and nothing will change that. Update 6. Hi. Trisha and I were able to make peace, and so far things are going well. She apologized to me for everything, and I forgave her because she was already feeling terrible and it wouldn't be right to pile my resentment on top of that. She told me that the situation with Jerry affected her deeply, and she started lashing out. But that's no excuse because she herself understood that she hadn't been the easiest person even before. I'm partially to blame for that too because I never scolded her, punished her, or tried to guide her in the right direction. We're both now trying to rebuild our relationship because we understand we need to stick together, especially in such hard times. I don't want to give up on her, and she doesn't want to give up on me. So we decided to restore our bond and not give up. As for Jerry, I advised Trisha to tell the truth about what happened between them. After all, he promised to be faithful, but broke his promise. So why should she keep her side of the bargain? That guy deserved a lesson. And yes, on my advice, Trisha did tell the truth publicly. In the end, they had a very messy online fight, which only showed his true nature. Trisha wasn't at fault, and most people took her side, except for a couple of girls who didn't like her anyway, and were just looking for a reason to badmouth her. She told me she was glad I insisted she speak up and tell everyone the truth, because Jerry really needed to be put in his place, and I'm glad she did it. Right now, we're focused on rebuilding our relationship. I can't say everything is perfect, but it's only the beginning. I hope that soon we'll have a strong father-daughter bond again. She's also started going to therapy and working on herself, as have I. We both really needed that. We don't know what the future holds, but we know for sure that we'll try our best to get through this together. Well, that's all. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Watch our previous videos, which you'll see right here. And be sure to subscribe to our channel, like, and good luck.